Okay, so hi everyone, welcome to our project presentation, which is an app concept called SoundBae to help you find your musical match. So the question that drove our idea and project or questions really was, how can I find new up-and-coming artists that are performing in my area, as well as fellow fans to go with me to those shows? My teammate Brennan will explain the concept for the app and how it would work.
So like Sabrina mentioned, our app is designed not only to connect the logged in user to new bands, but also to other fans. Live music is inherently social, so we wanted to make that a primary focus of our app. When a user logs into our app with their Spotify account, they can set their concert area zip code as well as a radius of how far they're willing to travel. From there, they can either find bands or fans near them to swipe through. Bands will be populated based on the logged in user's listener data from Spotify, as well as their geographic location. The user can then preview one of the artist's songs, see their upcoming concerts, and match with the band to add the concert to their calendar. Similarly, fans will populate based on shared music taste or concert interest. When fan users match, they can message each other in the app to set up plans to attend a concert together.
All right, so on the data side of things, we knew we wanted at least 3 types of data. Data for the artist info, data for the listener counts or interaction data, and data for shows for venues and things like that. So what we wanted to do was use related artist data to a specific artist. So in this example, we used the artist Arca. And using the API for Spotify, we get a list of related artists. I just picked a random 3 here. And using that, we go through the Chartmetric API to try and get the number of monthly listeners. However, this is not an endpoint that they offer. So that is something we look to in the future, but for now, they do have that info on their actual platform. So I just have some screenshots of what we would do to get that. And so we would basically get this list and kind of filter it down to artists who have total engagement of listeners less than about 300,000, which was a number we kind of picked using calculated guesses, but that would have to be refined in the future. And then from here on, using this filtered down list, we would get info from the Songkick API, which we weren't able to have access to for the weekend, but ideally we would try and get show and venue data for upcoming shows for these artists, and that is how we would populate the system with these up and coming artists and up and coming shows in the area.
Yeah, so we see a number of value points with SoundBae that would lend itself to the feasibility of the app as a product. Primarily, which is the main goal of the app, is to highlight smaller artists and shine a spotlight on them in music discovery. As a value for the users, it would also help fans find new concert experiences in their area, as well as connect and create community around artist discovery with people locally, especially as you're discovering new artists and you might want to go to this show, but no one in your network might know of this artist. You don't want to go alone. So now you can find a buddy to go with you. Financially, we also see potential revenue from ad support, but also possible partnerships with ticketing platforms for promoting their events and driving attendees to these concerts. As well as over time, the app would be able to develop a database, a wide array of data, including geographic fan distribution, artist similarity, and genre tastes, data that could be provided to other companies or even in an artist-facing capacity to better understand their audiences and potential audiences. We do identify some weaknesses and limitations. Of course, asking users to adopt a whole new app is always a hurdle with any application. We also, for the purposes of proof of concept, we chose 300,000 monthly listeners as our kind of threshold, but we will certainly want to dive in deeper into what we would use to define a smaller up and coming artist versus an established artist. There also might be limited usability in an area that is a concert desert, small cities far from a major music market. And that is our presentation. Thank you so much.
Right on time. Love that. Amazing work, guys. So to our judges, do you have any questions?
I have one. So is the purpose of the chart metric data to make sure it's not a huge artist, so to try and find up and coming artists rather than any artist potentially? Is there a reason that you wanted to focus on that up and coming artist group rather than opening this up to potential artists, all potential artists?
So the reason we were trying to focus specifically on smaller artists was that we felt like they were the ones who would need to get the word out about their shows more. You know, an Ariana Grande or a Weeknd is already selling out their shows. They don't need an app like this to kind of promote it. But with a smaller artist, it may be harder to know people who also like that artist and also to get those shows to be full. So the idea was kind of that this would help not only fill out those venues for the artist, but also help people who like a band that maybe their friends don't find people to go to these shows with.
I think it would also help differentiate it a bit from just someone who's going to peruse Ticketmaster, as well as narrow possibly a bit the target audience. You know, it's going to be a bit more of the music enthusiast, someone who is looking for up and coming rather than just your regular, you know, top 40 music consumer.
And just to add to it a little bit, like this would be curated to your music taste. So like these artists you're being suggested to are similar in taste to like things you already listen to as well.
Great. I think we can do one more question from the judges.
Yeah, hi. I was just wondering why you guys had gone for monthly listeners as the metric you were going to pull from chart metric there as your benchmark, and did you think there was potentially any limitations with using that metric over the other endpoints which were available?
You know, I think to be perfectly candid, there was a bit of a discussion of what is the metric, and possibly something as well for us to dive deeper. That maybe becomes a bit more of a philosophical question of what is the best number? Is it followers versus listeners? You might have a lot of followers that aren't engaging and listening to you because it's been a while since you released, versus someone that has a big spike in listeners because of one track but isn't engaged. One idea that was thrown around was possibly chart metrics, you know, ranking or even engagement score. We just weren't sure if that, you know, might be a good metric since it is very specific to chart metric. But we, you know, of all of the metrics, figured that, you know, monthly listeners was maybe the most, at least in a given moment, you know, reliable metric for an established or up and coming even artist.
Yeah, and also I think, you know, monthly listeners does in a way like that is kind of a factor in like how an artist makes money. The more you stream their music, the more money they make off these platforms. So we kind of we are in the business of trying to grow these small artists. So we want to try and pick out these artists that don't have a lot of listeners and try and grow their user base there.